The payload for this mission is information. Information that allows us to improve the design of future Starship builds. That is our only goal.
This clip is from an interview I conducted with Elon Musk just days ahead of the 420 launch. While, of course, the launch has provided SpaceX with plenty of data and lessons to be learned about the Starship Super Heavy rocket, it has also presented the grand challenge of how to design a better Stage 0. Because look at this.
I don't know where the SD card is, unfortunately.
It's safe to say that Elon Musk came through with his excitement guaranteed promise on the historic 420 Starship launch. While it was indeed exciting, it was also damaging to Stage 0. Take a look at this video captured by Michael Baylor showing the damage to the remote cameras that SpaceX didn't even let photographers pick up until 2 days after the launch. The damage in Boca Chica at the Starbase launch site was ugly. A big question is, how long will this take to repair? Elon tweeted saying 3 months ago they started building a massive water-cooled steel plate to go under the launch mount. It wasn't ready in time, and they wrongly thought, based on static fire data, that it would make it through one launch. He also makes the claim that they'll be ready to launch again in 1 to 2 months. Seriously, the 1 to 2 month timeline that Elon is giving here is definitely Elon time. After furiously searching for more heat tiles on the beach, check out this one that Joe Tagmeyer found. Angry Astronaut and I decided to dodge the potholes to try and see what we could find the day after the Starship launch. Now, of course, the road was closed, but we were able to see some early photos and aerial surveillance of the damage that had been done to the area. So I decided to do a little post-mortem of the pad here on the closed road. Very glad that you were able to make it out here for the launch.
Me too.
And it seemed like you maybe at first had a better impression of it than you now currently have. So give us your assessment. And
the rocket is as good as I thought it was. Actually, the rocket may have been better than I thought it was, because a lot of the system failures, engine shutdowns and all that, I think, are a direct result of all the damage it probably took before it could even get clear of the launch pad.
While mainstream media headlines would have you thinking that the big failure was the fact that it exploded a couple minutes after launching, us rocket nerds know the real failure was the damage to Stage 0. But remember, this was a test flight. Eric Berger puts it well on Twitter, writing, "For the layperson who sees NASA at work, which can't afford to fail, this looks like a failure. But for those who know a little bit more and about iterative design, this was a tremendous success. SpaceX has 2 to 3 more rockets ready to go." He writes, "SpaceX does things differently. Its process is faster, but also messier. Fortunately, they can afford to fail. They can build 10 super heavy first stages in the time that NASA builds a single SLS rocket. If the first 5 fail, but the next 5 succeed, which is a better outcome?" And check out these photos from Jack Beyer. He writes, "Starship first flight remote camera pickup part 1, utter carnage." There have been so many videos posted of the concrete chunks flying, and now we're starting to see some of that damage from the ground. Interestingly enough, look at this tweet from October 2020. Eric X posted a render of a launch animation, and he asked Elon if this was an accurate flame diverter. Elon said at the time, aspiring to have no flame diverter in Boca, but this could turn out to be a mistake. Well, it looks like it was. So I asked Angry Astronaut, who was semi-angry about space during our interview, why he thinks they chose to forego a flame diverter. First of all, I guess, what is your timeline, do you think, for the next launch, and what are some of the issues that obviously they have to fix now?
If they do what they need to do to have this be safe and, and appropriate, they need to construct a full-fledged flame trench, and that's not an easy thing to do in this terrain. They may have to build up the land in order to do that, but to patch the whole thing up and think that somehow they can make the concrete more resilient and to do it without a flame trench would be the pinnacle of stupidity. And I sure hope that they don't try to do something like that.
Yeah, Elon even stated on Twitter in 2020 this decision to not use a flame trench and saying it might be a bad idea. Why do you think they didn't ultimately use one?
There's a variety of reasons. Obviously, it's expensive. Obviously, it's time-consuming, and it could have complicated their environmental requirements. I mean, if you're digging down into the earth and engaging in widespread construction to build something that ambitious, obviously it has an impact on the surrounding environment, the animals, that sort of thing. So who knows? There could have been some FAA conditions saying that we're not going to let you do that. If that's the case, the FAA are a bunch of fools, because if they're supposed to be guaranteeing the safety of the community, that's the worst way to do it.
We met up yesterday. It was the aftermath of the day of the launch, and you sounded considerably more angry. So I feel like you're holding back a little bit. One of the things that you were saying is that this is just unacceptable with the timeline that we have to return to the moon. And so just maybe, come on, loosen up a little bit. You're angry.
This is the rocket that, well, Ellie, you diffuse a lot of my anger. What can I say? We've got 3 years to get this thing from where it is now to a reusable system that can maintain a rapid launch cadence, to refuel up there many times, and then somehow get it to the moon. I don't see how in the world they do that. It's going to take a considerable amount of time just to reconstruct what they've got out there. If I were heading up Artemis, and I got to meet the people heading up Artemis out in Colorado Springs just a couple of days ago, I would be chewing my fingernails off right now. I'd be seriously asking Congress, look, that $10 billion you were talking about before for a second HLS provider, we need that and we need it now.
Elon made some comparisons to N1 ahead of the launch, and you were talking about that last night, as well as Saturn V. Do you want to maybe just compare and contrast this to some of the other historic?
Well, Starship is unquestionably now the most powerful rocket to ever take flight. But it's not the most powerful rocket to reach space. SLS still holds that distinction. But the first flight of Starship was surprisingly similar, actually, to the first flight of N1. N1 didn't achieve the same altitude, but it was having, engine failures as it was heading on its way up, and ultimately the Soviets kind of gave up on it and had to trigger the flight termination charges, not unlike what happened here. About a 10-kilometer difference in terms of altitude, but other than that, a lot of similarities. And what we need to keep in mind is on the second attempt of N1, it airbursted a couple hundred meters over the pad and utterly devastated everything for kilometers around the launch pad. So we need to be cautious. I think that they need to, do a lot more prep work on the launch pad than they did this time.
It seems like there's a lot of debate, especially between the maybe more uninformed public versus the kind of rocket nerds like us, of whether or not this was a success. So how would you classify this?
The rocket was unquestionably a success. The support systems for the rocket, not so much.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? We have them here. It's not live. Anyone?
I just say a question, how soon do you think they'll have another rocket go off?
Next year. I don't see how they're going to be able to build what they need to build to have a safe launch here in less than 8 months. They need to build a full-fledged flame trench and everything that goes with that. They can't go cheap on this. Not with the most powerful rocket in human history. We have some very tangible evidence now with all of the massive pieces of concrete that got kicked around. Once again, I really think we're lucky it didn't blow up on the pad. I'd say it sustained an enormous amount of damage before it was 10 solid seconds of firing those Raptor 2s before it got clear of the tower. And during that time, it had to have been taking an enormous amount of punishment. I'm very impressed. It's a testament to the resilience of the rocket that it survived. I really think it could have completed a complete orbit of the planet if it hadn't experienced all those problems at the beginning.
The power's unprecedented.
Yeah, in which case I'd be getting a tattoo by now. So, but as you can see, Team Vulcan still has a chance at this. So
here's a question. We're talking about the impact and the needed repairs or rebuilding of the orbital launch facility. What do you think this means for production that's going on now?
That's a very good question, because if they're getting full up over there, obviously there isn't anything further that they can do. Now, of course, maybe suborbital tests might still be possible from the suborbital pads if there's anything to be gained by doing that. I think that they could definitely afford to try landing a little better than they currently do. SN15 was good, but it was on fire still. So it'd be nice to get that process, mastered perhaps in the meantime. But, of course, if you're doing testing, then production, may not be as active. I don't know. And of course, construction over there will be hindered by suborbital testing. So they could be in a tough spot right now. I don't know.
So as far as the damage to the launch pad, what sort of difference do you think it might have made if they actually had a deluge going?
Some, but the deluge, all the deluge does for the most part is disrupts sound waves. The sound waves are going down, the droplets of water disrupts the sound as it goes down and makes the reverberation less drastic. The fact that it dug a crater as deep as it did, I think that's all the power of the engines, and it had very little to do with sound.
Well, we are finally home from the Boca Chica adventure. I had been down in the area for almost exactly 2 weeks. It's kind of incredible how much has happened in that short time. Not only just amazing launch coverage that I never expected to have, especially considering I recently broke my leg. My mobility is night and day, even in just the 2 weeks that I've been down in South Texas. And I want to give a big special shout out to Joe Tegmeyer. He offered to help me on this trip as he was already wanting to go down and witness history. And I'll say it again, I could not have done this trip and provided you with the coverage that I did had it not been for his help. So everyone go check out Joe's channel if you haven't already. It was such a fun trip, and I'm planning on doing sort of a longer wrap-up video of all of the adventures and unexpected circumstances that I found myself in, including watching the launch on the roof of Margaritaville accompanied by the Musk family. So it really was just an adventure of a lifetime. And I've said it many times that March was a very, very hard month for me. And April is making up for it in a big way. And I'm so glad that you guys are with me on this incredible journey. This is really just still the beginning, and it is just such an honor to be Ellie in space. And so hopefully you enjoyed this coverage, and I will see you in the next video. And one more thing, if you're interested in getting a special 420 launch shirt, please make sure to check it out here. You can get your special memory shirt of the amazing first Starship launch that, of course, we had no idea exactly how it was going to go, and I was in such disbelief watching it live right in front of me, because this is a launch that you all know has been teasing us for so long. And of course, it wasn't perfect, but SpaceX is going to learn a lot from this, and I know that I cannot wait to see the next one.